Thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate your time. I'm Brenda Britch from the National Girls Collaborative Project, and along with Amanda and Kato, we're looking forward to having a conversation with you today. We had the privilege of meeting with a group of Teen Science Café people last year, and it was really fun. And we learned a lot, and we hope that you also learn a lot. I'll let Kata and Amanda say hi, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Sullivan, also with the National Girls Collaborative Project. I'm really excited to meet all of you, seeing everywhere you're coming from all over the US in the chat, and looking forward to the conversation today as well.
Hi everyone, I'm Katya Lucas. I'm also looking forward to talking with you all today. And yeah, it's great to see folks from all over the country and really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you both. Before we pull up our slides and get started with those, I would just like to ask kind of an opening question, an icebreaker question. We are wondering, we'd like to hear about your early memories related to science. What is an early memory that you have related to science? What do you remember doing, liking, or not liking when you were a young person related to science? And feel free to put answers in the chat. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. It's really helpful to see where everyone is coming from. So feel free to share an early memory that you have with science in the chat, but also we welcome you to unmute yourself and share it verbally with us as well. We'd love to hear some additional voices during this webinar today. Alan says the moon landing, very nice. That's a big one. Will says visiting science centers. Yes. COSI in Columbus. Perfect. Hannah, I love to identify different rocks. Oh, really? That's great. And that's something that probably a lot of kids do, right? When we're all young, everybody has rocks around us. You wanted to be a geologist. Roseanne, independent outdoor exploration. And then we're also working with your grandfather in his vet practice. Wow. My kids would have loved that. And so Sarah says, as a preschooler, going to the nature center and holding the toads. So you actually remember the specifically holding toads, which says something that you remember that vivid memory, right? Zora, feel free to correct me if I'm not saying your name correct. I think did you mean to write volcano, maybe?
Yes.
Doing a volcano or seeing a
volcano? Yes, sorry.
That's okay. Seeing one or making one in school?
No, I was we were making it out of a school. Not that much in our school, they were working on STEM.
Great, thank you. And Becca, it looks like you have your hand up. Sorry. Want to unmute and share your memory?
Tried to put it in the chat, and for some reason it direct messaged Will, so I apologize. Well, no, we dissected a frog on my friend's front porch after he got a kit for Christmas, and we were probably like 7.
I love that. I don't think I've ever heard that one before. That's really fun. There are just so many great examples in the chat. Thank you all for sharing them. We love this question because, it really kind of brings us back to when we were younger and how we interacted or were introduced or experienced STEM in one way. And it also kind of shows how we have all different backgrounds and lived experiences, right? In terms of our science and our experiences with science. And all of these experiences that we have throughout our life help shape how we see science and our relationship to science. And this is something that we're going to be talking about throughout the presentation today. So thank you so much. I really appreciate all of these stories. It's so fun to hear. And I'm going to share my screen so we can start with our going through our slides. Let me know. Does everybody see my slides okay? Is that okay? Great, perfect. Thank you. So before we get started, I'm just going to present a quick overview of the National Girls Collaborative Project if you are not familiar with us, and then we will jump into our conversation for today. So in GCP, our vision is to support and create STEM experiences that are as diverse as the world we live in. And we do this through three main goals, and by connecting and creating and collaborating a network of advocates to increase gender equity and equity overall in STEM. Two of our main goals are to build and sustain a network of advocates and also to catalyze equity in STEM from research to practice. And one of the ways that we catalyze equity in STEM from research to practice is by providing a number of research-based free resources to the public, to our network, but they're all freely available to everyone. So I want to highlight just a few of our categories of resources that might be helpful to you all in your work. We have monthly national webinars that are on relevant topics related to equity in STEM. Speakers include educators, researchers. We've had some great authors lately of STEM books for kids and also diverse STEM professionals. We have a monthly newsletter. If you're not on that list, I encourage you to sign up. It's just once a month and it's packed full of events and STEM resources, professional development opportunities, and sometimes highlights recent research. And finally, our website has a number of resources in addition to the ones I just mentioned. We have a number of exemplary practices pages which highlight best practices related to equity in STEM. We have a number of blog posts on a variety of interesting topics, and we also have statistics and research related to girls and women in STEM. And we are an implementation partner with the Million Girls Moonshot, and that is why we get to be here with you today. We get to work with a number of educators across the country who are involved with Million Girls Moonshot in some way, and Teen Science Café is also a partner with Million Girls Moonshot, so we're happy that we get to be here with you via that connection. And their goal is really to inspire the next generation of innovators by engaging 1 million more girls in STEM learning through after school and summer. And we've already been through 4 years, so they've already met their goals and beyond. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you to all of you sharing those incredible science memories that have stuck with you all these years. I'm really excited to talk more about these STEM experiences and how we can work to create meaningful and inclusive STEM experiences for the youth that you serve today. And something that came up with all of the science memories you were sharing is that everyone connects and experiences science and STEM differently, and different things resonate and different things stick with you and impact you. And what we know from research is that all youth, regardless of gender or background, are equally capable, have equal aptitude to engage and pursue and excel in STEM. But youth experience STEM differently. And this is due to a lot of different factors that we'll be talking about today. So there's issues of access or lack of access to high quality STEM opportunities, exposure to different pervasive stereotypes about STEM careers, people in STEM. So thinking about how STEM related jobs might be portrayed in the media, in books, in pop culture, in toys. Through all of these means, youth are exposed to different stereotypes. The STEM curriculum or programming that youth are exposed to may or may not be personally or culturally relevant to them. And then also this exposure or lack of exposure to relatable STEM role models that youth can see themselves in and sort of see that possibility of a similar career or similar experience. And so all of these different factors and experience can impact youth's interest, confidence, and sense of belonging in STEM, along with their likelihood of actually choosing to pursue STEM opportunities and careers down the line. So we want to take a minute to talk more about these STEM experiences and think about the populations and the youth that you work with. And so we'd love to hear from you again, either in the chat or raising your hand or just, unmuting if there's a pause. Do any of those factors I mentioned, access, stereotypes, curriculum, resonate with you or any of the youth that you currently work with? Or maybe are there other factors that you want to voice and share that you think impact your youth in terms of how they might connect or feel confident with STEM? Imani says, yes, all of them, right? Yeah. They all play a role in different ways. And like we tried to point out, positive or negative, right? So access can be a great thing if everyone's getting access. Role models are amazing if everyone is getting exposure to a role model that can connect with them or that they can be inspired by. I'm just pausing to give you a moment to think. And I know we're asking a lot of big questions and we don't expect you to have an immediate answer or an essay to throw into the chat. Yeah, Becca is sharing about funding. Lack of funding affects your access. Absolutely. Hannah agrees with all of what was mentioned. Your youth are heavily affected by stereotypes, lack of role models, and lack of opportunities in their area. Yeah, that's challenging. Lack of bandwidth to share as well. Yes. Getting caught up with all the chat. Yeah, that being assimilated into the dominant culture for girls of color. Yes, I agree. I think everything that you're all sharing in the chat are important and critical issues. And hopefully we can share some strategies, including we'll share a couple of resources that maybe aren't directly related to the work you're currently doing with the Teen Science Cafes, which are in person, but we will later on also share some virtual online resources that might help with some of these things that you've mentioned in terms of, access and funding. It's just additional resources that you might be able to share. Yeah, transportation, internet issues, access in general. Access could be, can be and is its entire conversation and planning and webinar topic. Well, feel free to continue putting your ideas in the chat about these factors and issues that impact youth STEM experiences, but we'll move on to start talking about a few of the strategies and factors that we mentioned. So when we're thinking about setting up that inclusive learning environment, there's a lot of different pieces that we can consider. And obviously this is assuming we have the access to creating that learning environment to begin with, which you've all mentioned in itself is a big issue, the funding, the space, and the access. But assuming that you're setting up a physical learning environment, the first thing we can stop to consider is the accessibility of the space, the objects, and also the images, how things STEM and people in STEM are portrayed in the physical space, but also physical accessibility, making sure that everyone in your group is able to be in the space and participate in the space in a way that works for them. And then it's also thinking about how we facilitate the learning in that environment. So making connections with your youth, but also facilitating them to form a community and make connections and have conversations and bonds among one another. That community building piece it can be really powerful. Facilitating youth voice, I'll talk more about that in just a minute. And then also setting boundaries, expectations, or sometimes you might call it setting norms, setting the stage to facilitate the environment in a way that encourages mutual respect, understanding, and is a safe place. So people feel like they can speak up, they can ask a question, they aren't worried about making a mistake or looking silly. Especially girls often struggle with perfectionism and not wanting to raise their hand and speak up. So having that safe space from the very beginning is really critical. And really, just all of these things go together to creating a positive learning environment for your youth, and remembering that what each person that you're working with needs for it to be a positive learning environment might look a little different. So whenever there's room for flexibility or meeting the needs of individual youth, that's something to try to consider as well. So I'll just speak briefly about the youth voice piece before we move on and talk more about role models. So when we're thinking about encouraging youth to have a voice, an authentic voice in STEM, how can we do that? What are the ways that we can do that? And if you have ideas or ways that you facilitate this specifically with your youth, please share away in the chat. But encouraging youth voice is all about seeking out youth perspectives, opinions, and their points of view. So giving them the space to share those thoughts and ideas and really valuing them, and guiding them to be a part of their own learning process, really letting them take the reins in their learning experience. So, allowing them to make meaningful choices that have an actual impact on what they're doing as it relates to STEM. So it could be, in the case of role models, having a voice in saying what type of STEM career they want to learn more about, and what type of role model they really want to see come and speak to them. It could be the types of jobs that they're interested in learning about, rather than you as the facilitator choosing and deciding what might be interesting for them to learn about, or what STEM careers might be, deciding what they should be interested in. And then providing youth opportunities to share their ideas, share their learning, sharing their takeaways, not just within the program, but to a larger audience, whether it's their family members, their siblings, community members. All of that helps them have a voice on a little bit of a larger scale as well. So I'll turn it over now to Kata to start talking about how all of this can be worked into a role model experience.
Thanks, Amanda. So before we dive into some strategies for creating a meaningful role model experience, we just wanted to share a little bit of the research and kind of set the stage on why role models. So research shows that role models can have a positive impact on girls and youth in STEM by really shifting those perceptions about who belongs in STEM, about STEM fields themselves, really dispelling stereotypes about STEM people and careers, and really showing how STEM journeys are varied and diverse. There's not one path and there's not a linear path. And it can also show how STEM is collaborative and social to really help make STEM relevant to girls and youth. And so when youth have opportunities to relate and to perceive similarities between themselves and a role model, this can really shape their belief about being successful in STEM and encourage them to participate. And so educators can play a really important role in integrating role models in a variety of ways. So you could integrate role models through books or through media, whether those photos or videos. You can also create online role model experiences for youth, as well as in-person experiences. And so before we dive into the strategies, I'm just going to provide one more little context slide, because we're going to share a little bit about a program that we've implemented at NGCP, because you will hear us bring examples up probably throughout the presentation. So just to give you a little bit of context so you know what we're talking about when we refer to Bright, Bright is an online summer program for girls 13 to 16. And we've implemented it over 3 summers now with a variety of iterations as we've been learning. But the program centers on engagement with diverse women role models. So girls will meet a role model online and have an opportunity to hear about that role model STEM journey, the personal, the professional aspects. They'll have an opportunity to ask the role model questions, to engage in some sort of interactivity with the role model online, and also have opportunities to share some of their STEM ideas and their projects that they work on during the week. So we have hands-on activities and digital projects that the girls work on throughout the week that relate to the role model. And girls also have time to engage in some collaborative learning opportunities outside of the role model experience. So just as we go along through the presentation, when we mention Bright, you'll hear that a lot. Hopefully that provides a little bit of a context about the Bright program. So now diving into the strategies for creating a meaningful role model experience. Yes, I was going to say that as well, Brenda. I saw you put that in the chat. You all are extra lucky today because we have one of our fabulous Bright educators with us here today, Lorena. So no pressure, but feel free to jump in at any time. So first, I think if you could go to the next slide, Brenda, diving into the first strategy. So creating youth-centric role model experiences. So this first piece, it touches on what Amanda mentioned earlier. It's really about getting to know the girls or the youth that you're working with. So making STEM relevant both personally and culturally to them. And that really involves getting to know their interests, their knowledge, their skills, their culture, and their lived experiences. So really learning from the youth and asking them what they're interested in. And also it's about valuing their contributions and their strengths. So that includes their prior STEM knowledge and those skills that they're building, and to really support them as they're learning about STEM careers, and gaining that skill set. Educators can play a really crucial role in recognizing youth skills and ideas. And this can really help foster a positive STEM identity. And we wanted to just share one resource. We'll put it in the chat, but it's from our partner, Career Girls. And there are these Career Girl quizzes, which is a really fun way for educators to learn more about their youth career interests and goals. And you can then integrate your learnings from these quizzes when you're thinking about recruiting role models for a role model experience. So just one fun way to start to get to know a little bit more about what your youth are interested in. And if we could go to the next slide. So thinking about the next strategy we wanted to share is to think about what characteristics of a role model will be impactful. So when we've recruited role models for Bright, we really cast a wide net in thinking about diversity of the role model. So race, ethnicity, gender, age, but also factors like geography, ability, career level, STEM discipline, and also STEM story. And the reason we do this is we really want to cast a wide net because this allows for girls and youth for multiple opportunities to relate and connect to the role model. And we'll get into this more in future strategies, but we want to provide a lot of opportunities where girls and youth can learn about the personal and professional aspects of the role model STEM journey. And we might not know all the reasons why a young person might connect with the role model. So we just want to provide them with multiple opportunities to make that connection, whether it's related to the role model STEM discipline, related to their age, to their gender, maybe to their hobby, because the role model says, oh, I like hiking, and a young person likes hiking. So we just want to provide those multiple opportunities for the youth to connect and relate to the role model. If we could go to the next slide. So it's important to also prepare role models. So not all STEM professionals have experience talking with youth, and we want the role models to be supportive, to be inspiring, and we want that message to be positive to youth, to spark that interest in science or deepen that interest in science and STEM fields. So we wanted to share a little bit about how we prepared role models during Bright and some of the guidance that we've provided our role models that is research-based. So we encourage role models to make connections with girls to create a safe and welcoming space. So really letting role models know in advance about the demographics of youth, the interests of youth. So kind of going back to if you did your homework and you got to know your youth, this can be really important when you're preparing role models. We also want role models to be mindful of implicit biases. So when a role model is sharing their story, the framing of the message is really important. One example is if a role model, say, loves to travel and they just kind of talk about various vacations they've taken with no context, that could potentially not be relatable to an audience of lower socioeconomic youth that might not have the opportunity to travel. But if a role model instead frames their love for travel or their appreciation from travel from the point of view that now that they have a secure STEM job, this allows them to travel, then you can see how that in that framing, girls and youth might connect and understand, oh, this might be one reason I'm interested in getting a STEM job because maybe I want to travel more one day as well. So the messaging really matters. We also want role models to share, and I mentioned this previously, those personal and professional aspects of their journey. STEM is never the only part of the role model's life. And so we really want the role model to dive in and share, oh, I like to play sports. I like to hike. I have a pet. Sometimes we've had, some seemingly maybe very basic questions from girls like, what is your favorite color? They're interested in all these different aspects of the role model. And again, by sharing that provides girls and youth with a variety of opportunities to connect. We also want the role model to talk about their work in age-appropriate ways. So we want to make the field that they're in accessible to youth, interesting, and also to avoid jargon. We don't want it to come across as boring or dry for the youth, but we want the role model to present in a way that is interesting and engaging. And related to that, we want the role model to have a conversation with youth, not a lecture. So this interactivity piece, when we can encourage role models to engage girls in a game or some sort of activity during their talk, this can really help girls maintain their focus and engagement with the role model. And we also want role models to be prepared for a wide variety of questions from youth. So during the Bright program, we get a really wide variety of questions. Like I mentioned, what is your favorite color? Do you have a pet? Some of these questions on the surface, don't in any way relate to STEM, but at the same time, they relate to that role model and their journey. And so they're of importance to the youth. And we think it makes for a really rich experience when girls and youth are comfortable to interact with the role model in such a way where they can ask these really diverse and, somewhat random questions sometimes. And I think we can go to the next slide which relates to preparing role models. Just some resources, I'll just briefly mention them. These are the resources we use when preparing our role models for Bright. So prior to the Bright program, we have asked all of our role models to participate in the TechBridge Girls Role Models Matter training. So this is a 1-hour asynchronous training for STEM professionals, educators, and program staff. And you'll all have the opportunity if you want to participate in it. We put the link in the chat. The training is rooted in cultural responsiveness, and it helps role models and educators connect and engage with diverse youth. And it includes some great videos and reflection questions throughout. And so that's kind of the first piece of our training that our role models participate in during Bright. And after they participate in this asynchronous training, we've had them come together as a cohort. We discussed that training, and we've also engaged them through the Sci Girls role model strategies, which are research-based strategies for STEM professionals and educators as well. They're listed on the slide, and you'll see a lot of overlap between the concepts of the TechBridge Girls training and some of those points that I previously mentioned that we share with role models when we prepare them. But overall, we like to have a variety of opportunities to just really talk with role models before they talk with girls so that they can feel confident and prepared to engage with a diverse group of girls. And then finally, we also want to prepare our youth for engaging with role models as well. And part of this involves encouraging conversation around STEM topics. So really helping the youth build that confidence in talking about STEM, sharing their interests and ideas prior to meeting the role model. And then similarly, we like to share some information about the role models in advance. So for Bright, we often share whether it's a video that the role model is featured in, an article the role model wrote, some sort of resource so that the youth can then learn a little bit more about the STEM journey and field of the role model. This again helps them kind of start to brainstorm and think about like, oh, what might I want to ask the role model? And then finally, related to that, it's important for educators to support the youth in preparing questions for role models. So again, helping youth think through, what do I want to ask this role model? This will help build their confidence so that when it comes time to talk with the role model, they can feel comfortable asking that question in whatever format the role model experience takes. And I think that's all for me right now, and I'm going to pass it back to Amanda to share more on these strategies.
Yes, well, I think that's, it's time for us to hear from you a little bit. I love how active the chat is being. Thank you so much for sharing all of those ideas and experiences you had with role models and things from your own practice. But we'd love for you to take a moment now with all that wonderful information that Katja shared to think about the youth in your Teen Science Cafe. So thinking about, who would an ideal STEM role model be and what are their characteristics? Maybe that's in terms of personality, specific job, their journey, their background. We're just curious to hear from you, or maybe just engage with a little brainstorming about who would be like your dream STEM role model to come to your Teen Science Cafe. And you can share in the chat or unmute and share your voice as well. Someone early career and enthusiastic. Yes, that's a great point. sometimes when you bring role models who are really, really, really far along in their career, it's not as approachable. And you definitely need someone enthusiastic about their job. Otherwise, that's not going to be the right message that you're sending. Thank you for sharing that, Will. In Bright, we have one role model who just retired from her long career at Intel, and then we have role models who are just finishing graduate school and just starting in their career, and having that range is so important. Alan shared that role models need to be approachable, interesting, engaging, and respected. Yes, they have to be engaging, right? And I think part of that piece that Kata was sharing on the preparation is that you could be absolutely brilliant in your own field, but you might not know how to talk to teenagers in an engaging, interesting way. You might be used to giving talk to conferences of other scientists in your field, for example. So having that preparation can really help with what you just said, of Alan, about them being approachable and engaging. Lorena shared someone optimistic and relatable. Yes. Becca shared someone who comes from the local community. That can be so important for youth to connect with, to see possibilities where they currently live, to learn about careers and jobs and people within an actually very a network you can wrap your mind around. That can be really important. Yes, other people are saying the engagement piece. It's a lot about how they engage with the teens, someone who can really engage with the teens on their level. Nice. Imani, do you want to share about the specific role models that you put in the chat? Let us know what they do, why they would be. You're the only one that name drops specific names. I love that.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, please.
I hope that some of you can look up Joy Bulamwini on YouTube. She is the most energetic and engaging person that I've ever seen give a presentation. She had a documentary done about her that was called Coded Bias, and she detected bias in artificial intelligence algorithms. And she has, because of that, she created something that's called the Algorithmic Justice League that anyone can join and help Joy in her mission to erase bias from artificial intelligence.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I'll be looking them up. I know everyone else will be. And I love that you said there's been a documentary about her, because, while we can't always get the specific dream person, it's amazing when there's video resources online, so we can learn about these individuals and check them out. Thank you for sharing that. There's so many suggestions showing science outside of a lab setting. That really goes towards countering stereotypes, because a lot of the image that youth see in the media or in books or in pop culture is like someone just hunched over a computer or in a lab with like beakers and explosions. So showing that there's different ways to engage in science in lots of different settings is really important. And I really love what Louisa suggested about someone who has changed careers. Absolutely. A lot of people, they think that they need to pick one thing and that's the thing that they do, forever until they retire. But it really is kind of an outdated notion, and like so many people are not doing that with their careers. And so showing different ways that some people might do that, and that's wonderful, and some people might follow varied paths, and that's okay too. And that can still be extremely meaningful and lead you through a powerful career journey as well. I love that. Well, this is great. Thank you. Keep on sharing away in the chat. We just wanted to share one more quick resource with all of you before we get into thinking even more about your specific Teen Science Cafe. I think I mentioned we would share some online resources. If you want to go to the next slide, we just wanted to quickly mention the If Then collection. We know that you work in person with your role model experiences in your Teen Science Cafe. So this would be more of a supplementary resource, and we can pop that link in the chat. But it's an online digital collection of videos, activities, all sorts of different resources featuring diverse women from a lot of different amazing STEM career fields. And so if you have, you know, a young person in your cafe who's interested in something really specific, or interested in combining interests, and you can't find that person to come in person or in your community, the If Then collection is a great place to find video interviews, video clips, and it's all available freely at no cost. So this is a great resource. The person that you see on the far right-hand corner, just to give you an example of that career mixing, I was just thinking about this as someone was saying about changing careers that overlap, I think are also interesting to young people as well. So this individual, Beata, combines science with fashion design. So taking what she sees under the microscope and making them into like beautiful fashion designed clothing. So that's kind of an example, not of switching careers, but of overlapping arts and science. So I think I'll be turning it over now to Brenda, as you will be thinking more about your Teen Science Cafe experiences.
Thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Kata, and thank you all for your insights and your ideas and sharing some of your experiences with us. We're going to take a little bit of time to break into some small groups. I think we have enough time. We have chosen, we know you're all familiar with the Teen Science Cafe design principles. We've chosen 4 of them that we think lend themselves really well to this conversation, and ones that I think are really helpful to think about in terms of the context of creating inclusive learning environments, helping all youth to feel welcome in your space and in your program. And so we're going to ask you we'll put you in groups of 3 to 4, and we're going to ask you to pick one of these principles. You can talk about different ones in your group. Different people can talk about different ones, however you want to do it. But think about these principles in light of our conversation today and how you can really put these into practice in your cafe. Okay, so the first one is really about the scientists and how they're vetted and coached and how to communicate with teens. So I feel like we've talked quite a bit about this today. Think about what's really important in that process, right? To make sure you're providing an inclusive environment for your youth. And just the goal of attracting teens with diverse motivations and life experiences. How can you make your program an attractive place to a diversity of youth? And then this idea of really you want your teens to gain ownership of their program through opportunities for leadership. So how can we do that in our cafes? With a special lens on making sure everyone is getting those opportunities and all youth feel like they can do that. And then the 4th one is around, you all and the organizers cultivating strong community relationships. What's important in that process to make sure that you're creating this inclusive environment for your youth? So I'm trying to think the best way to do this so we all can see the design principles. I think we'll have to put them in the different breakout rooms. Amanda, is that right? Kata? So we'll put them in rooms and then go ahead.
I believe after I send them to rooms, I can broadcast them because I'm not sure if they'll see the chat.
Yes,
I think any of us who are co-hosts will be able to either send message or broadcast.
Yes. Okay. So if you can take a second to maybe think about one of these that you want to focus on in your conversation, but we'll broadcast these into your rooms. And I think we'll take about 8 minutes in the rooms to have a brief discussion about about these principles and putting them into practice. All right, so I'm going to ask Amanda to send, you should get an invite to go to a breakout room. Welcome back. Sorry to cut off conversations. I'm sure that happened. I know it was not a lot of time, but we hope you were able to start at least. What was that?
I said the conversation was getting interesting, and then
I know that always happens. I'm sorry. We hope you were able to at least start thinking about this and have a little bit of a conversation with a couple peers. We'd love to hear if what you did get to talk about. Anything interesting that you thought of, or even if it was just about the connection with the other person, or the other people in your group. So feel free to unmute and share your.
hi everybody. So me, Claire, and Jill, we were talking about our experience about the Teen Cafe we had. The challenges was for me and Claire was we had a very good speakers. Different. I had 4 people, and one of them they're working with the White House, so it was interesting for kids and Claire too. But we had a lot of stress about the kids, how many kids coming. So we didn't know I didn't know that it was 0 or more than that, or a lot of kids coming, because this happened for me and Claire, that many people registered and they didn't come. But for me, that the one that they didn't register, they came. So yeah, that was, but Jill had a good, she had 12 kids, 11 kids, and she had 2 meeting. Me and Claire, we have just 1, but the speakers, it seems that the organization are more interested to help us, and that's a good thing. I have a now city, and that's they are my partner for this. They are different organization are ready to help. They came to the event to see how it's going, how this happens, and they can come for the next one. But still we have this problem with how we can attract kids to be there, to come to the event. So do you want Claire add anything, or Jill? Claire? So it's
okay. Well, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me. My name is Carrie Ann. Sorry about that.
okay. Yes. Do you want to add anything?
No, I think you summed it up very well. Weather was my issue, really.
Oh,
not the only one, but weather was a significant issue. So
right, mine was I called it a learning moment or something, because I didn't get my flyers in for the first 2 weeks that I thought they were in, and then when I updated it with some new information, that's when it went in. And so I luckily still had 4 out of 6 or 6 out of 9, something like that, show up. One of them got sick both times. I felt bad for the kid.
Oh, well, those are, learning moments that's a great way to say that. And we appreciate you all sharing your experiences. And I see some questions in the chat about ages, and I think Claudia has responded to that. Sounds like maybe middle school to high school, and middle school might be more engaged. Somebody else want to share a little bit about your conversation? So, or just high school?
Yes.
No,
Oh, Becca, I think, is that?
we were just talking about, we both ended up with more of the middle school kids.
Mhm.
even though we had it open to the high school kids, and we were surprised by that and thinking, that maybe the older high school kids had more opportunities for other things. They were busy with sports and stuff going on at school. And that, preparing the presenter for the middle school kids looks very different. They're not necessarily thinking about college or career or next steps yet. It's more about just getting them interested in science. So maybe they'll pick more science and math and engineering type classes when they're in high school, and just the need to, it's been a long day for them. They're doing this at night after school and after, whatever, that they need kind of the hands-on right away. So like not about, don't kind of talk at them for half an hour and then do your activity. Make sure that like you're interspersing hands-on or checking things out, or Claudia was mentioning like bring the tools of your trade, so like as you're talking you can be showing and passing, and so that it's active from kind of the get-go with the middle school kids, because otherwise they're just gone.
That is all great advice. And again, you're thinking about them and their needs, right? And what's going to work for them. So I really, I just wanted to point out we're out of time, but I want to point out Alan's comment that his middle school kids seem to be more receptive to programs promoted and planned by the upper level students. So that's another really interesting thing to think about, right? A high school student is planning something for middle school students. That can be very attractive. Yeah, so we've taken your time, all of your time. Thank you all so much for being here. We will follow up. Kristen, I think, will send the recording, and we'll provide a list of resources that we talked about. And we just really appreciate your time today. And feel free to follow up. We'll have our contact information in the follow-up. So if you want to reach out, we are happy to have you do that. So Kristen, did you want to close at all?
Thank you everybody for being with us this afternoon, and thank you to the National Girls Collaborative Project team. And yeah, I'll send out the recording later. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. And everyone, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.